Congressman Neal and ending your day with Senator Warren, who is here with us. It's also really nice to be here at the Ralph J. Froio Senior Center. And along with Senator Warren is the U.S. Health and Human Services Regional Administrator for Regional 1, Everett Hanford, who is right there. Also, I want to say thank you to all of you who responded to our call for an audience with Senator Warren. I know that you all are busy and afternoons on a Friday can be hectic, but we're really, really glad that you're joining us here. We look forward to the conversation and your input. Representative Farley Bouvier is here with us. Thank you. Former North Adams Mayor Tom Bernard is here. We have our school committee chair, Dr. Cameron, here with us this afternoon. And want a special thanks to Jim Clark and the staff here at the Senior Center for setting this up and hosting this. Thank you, Jim. All of you that are here in the room are true friends of Pittsfield, true friends of Berkshire County. Senator Warren, we've had a really wonderful partnership over the last 8 years, and we've worked together on a number of projects that have contributed to Pittsfield's success. I admire you for being a champion. You are a champion for Pittsfield and you are a champion for Massachusetts, and I really admire you. You know, we have all benefited from your time in Washington, your advocacy and support and your determination and persistence. Yes. Is something that we are all benefiting from. You know, you've come here often and held town halls here, not only in Pittsfield, but in Berkshire County. You visited our vaccine clinic during COVID-19, which meant a lot to everyone that was working in that clinic and benefiting from the vaccines. You were making sure that we had everything we needed. Thank you for your leadership, especially when it comes to the CARES Act and the American Rescue Plan. As you know, Pittsfield received over $40 million. We have put a significant amount of that money into programs with our community partners. We have worked on municipal projects that are benefiting the community and lowering the costs of our operating budget. And we have also made significant investments in housing. And we're really looking forward to a day when you can come back and tour what we have accomplished with our housing projects. But without your support and without the support of Senator Markey and Congressman Neal, we wouldn't have been able to accomplish all that we have done. So thank you for that. So in a few minutes, Senator Warren is going to talk with all of you about some of the policies and the legislation that she's been working on to support and help address the challenges that all of you face every day, especially the seniors in our community. So this is a special conversation for seniors, and I'm really grateful that you're here. But before we hear from Senator Warren, Everett Hanford would like to talk with us about his role and some of the things that he's working on. So Everett, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. Good afternoon, everyone. I bring you greetings from my office from the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, where I have the privilege to serve as the Region 1 Director for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, which encompasses the 6 states of New England and the 10 federally recognized tribes. Thank you, Jim, and your entire staff for opening up your doors and extending your generous hospitality to each and every one of us here today. Thank you to the hardest working mayor in the city of Pittsfield. You have been such an incredible, fearless leader and advocate, taking the city of Pittsfield to new heights. Thank you to all of you for being here today. And most importantly, thank you to our courageous and fearless Senator Elizabeth Warren and our entire team for being here with us today to convene this conversation. The Biden-Harris administration and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services are committed to health equity and health access for all families. Now that the public health emergency has ended, the president is committed to ensuring that individuals and families do not lose their health coverage. States will now begin to restart their yearly Medicare, Medicaid, and CHIP eligibility reviews. This means that states will use the information that they have to decide if current recipients are still qualified for health coverage. I'm here to let you know and encourage you all to please work diligently with the Mass Department of Health and Human Services, as well as the Health Connector, to ensure that you're still receiving the health coverage that you all rightly deserve. I will also say that the Biden-Harris administration and the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services are keeping to their promises to deliver a lower cost for American families so that you can access the health care that you all rightly deserve. Congress recently passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which is one of the largest health reforms since the passage of the Affordable Care Act, and its benefits are cascading for millions of Americans across the country. Some of the provisions included in that Inflation Reduction Act include Medicare Part D insulin co-pays will be capped at $35 per month for those who are diabetic. It caps out-of-pocket costs starting in 2025. People with Medicare Part D won't pay any more than $2,000 out of pocket for prescription drugs, and will have the option to pay out-of-pocket expenses in monthly amounts spread over the year. And finally, it provides free recommended vaccinations to Medicare and Medicaid recipients, which include pneumonia and the shingle shot. So anybody who's ever had to have the shingle shot knows how expensive it is. So thanks to the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, the Biden-Harris administration, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they're certainly keeping to their promises to deliver low health costs for American families. I'm proud to be here with all of you. And I'm proud to work for an administration that is truly prioritizing families first. So I'd say thank you. It now becomes, and this is truly what gives me a great pleasure. For those who are not aware, I received my first start in politics back in 2011, working on Senator Warren's campaign. And she was gracious enough to actually give me an opportunity to work in her official office, where I was able to watch, listen, and learn from this tireless advocate. I watched her go firsthand down to DC and fight tirelessly for all of you, day in and day out. I listened to her impart words of wisdom on ways that we can make government work for everyone, not just for those at the top. And most importantly, what I learned from this woman is that you have to wake up every single day and fight for the things that you believe of boldly and courageously. Words truly can't express how deeply grateful I am to Senator Warren. I owe you an immense gratitude, Senator. It's my honor to truly introduce my mentor, our senator, your senator, U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Thank you. Can everybody hear me? Yes. That's always the first question from a teacher, right? I want everybody to hear and I want to be able to see everybody. You know, I know why you're in the back. Let me start by saying I was not gracious to hire you, Everett. I was smart. But you know, it gives me a wonderful chance to say you gave me the perfect opportunity. If you really care about getting things done, if you really care about making change, if you really care about making things happen that make this a little better world, then you got to have partnership. And partnership is about young people that you hire and you bring in. I was telling Tricia as we walked in, our motto has always been in our office, hire the smartest, most engaged, ready to fight from the heart people that we can find, teach them everything that we know, and then help them find the next job so they can do more and do more and do more. And partnership is something I like to talk about when I come to Pittsfield. Partnership with current mayor, Linda, where did you go?
I'm right here.
There you are. With Linda and with former mayor Tom, that we did this partnership with Tricia, such an important part of everything that we have gotten done. You have advocates for Pittsfield. advocates who make sure that it never falls out of the brain of the senior senator from Massachusetts that Pittsfield and the needs of Pittsfield, the people who live in Pittsfield and the surrounding area, are an important part of our Commonwealth. And every time we're talking about policy, part of the question has to be, how's it going to affect Pittsfield, and are there changes we need to make sure that this works? So I just want to say thank you to my partners. You guys are terrific. So I'm going to actually go over a part of what Everett just did, just because I want you all to hear it one more time. It is such good stuff. We've actually made change in just the last couple of years. So now in America, for any of you who either are diabetic, know somebody who's diabetic, love somebody who's diabetic, the out-of-pocket costs for insulin are now at $35 for seniors. Is that just, I mean, it's huge. In addition to that, 2024, mark it on your calendar, is the year that no senior has to spend more than $2,000 out of pocket for prescription drugs.
All right.
Yes. And I want to say, for those of you who are doing okay on your prescription drugs, that may not sound like a lot, but people who get hit with really serious problems, people who are taking cancer treatments, for example, the difference on this out-of-pocket cap is going to be huge for them. A third one that I want to mention is that for the first time, starting next year, we actually will have a Medicare program that negotiates the price of prescription drugs. We have talked about this till we were children, we've started talking about this. Now, it's not all of them. It starts out with just 10, but it really is, it's the crack now in the wall. And it is the crack so much, you gotta love this. One of the drug companies is now in court suing to say they have a constitutional right to charge the price they want without having to negotiate over it. So my view is, bring it on. Okay? I'm ready for this one. So we're about to start that, and you start with 10. I'm ready for 20. I'm ready for 40. This is going to change the drug market overall, and all I can say is it is about time. And one more that is already in place. And this one starts with a story. Back in 2014, I was visiting with someone, and the question came up, why does a hearing aid cost multiple times more than an iPhone? Well, think about it. iPhone is a lot more complex. You can't take pictures with your hearing aid. You can't get music all on your own. Well, some of you can, but you know. Think of how simple a hearing aid is compared to an iPhone, and yet, at a time when an iPhone was under $1,000, hearing aids were running, a pair of them would run $5,000 or more sometimes.
9,000.
So, oh gosh. So why did that happen? And I started getting engaged in this. Why does that happen? The answer is just basically monopoly. They managed to get some regulations in place that just protected a monopoly, and they charged a monopolist price. So I went to a Republican in Washington. I think I could say this, the oldest Republican in the Senate. And I said, have I got a deal for you? And he said, what? And I told him about the hearing aids, and I said, you know, if we change the law at the federal level, which we have the right to do, you can sell them over the counter, and that means not only would there be competition among the hearing aid providers, but new entrants might get in the field, like Bose. Yeah. Folks who are doing music, who are doing audio, get into the hearing aid business. And so we got a bill through, got it signed into law by Donald Trump. FDA then dragged its feet on actually implementing. Biden administration stepped up, and it is now possible to buy hearing aids over the counter, and what used to cost thousands is now down to hundreds.
Wow.
So those are things we've gotten done. But there are still things we need to do. There are a lot of things we need to do, but I want to focus, since we're here with seniors, I want to particularly talk about these. Let's stick with hearing for a minute. I've got a bill right now that I'm very optimistic about getting it on through that has Medicare cover audiologists as well. So you can actually get a hearing test and not have to pay out of pocket for it. And the audiologists are in favor of this. I've got bipartisan support on this, so I'm hopeful we can do this. One more way, it's not a big headline grabber, but one more way to help lower costs. And keep in mind on the business with hearing aids, this is not just about turning the TV up louder. This is not just about the fact that you can't hear your grandchildren. This is about genuine isolation. That people who have hearing loss and don't get hearing aids don't go out. They don't talk to people. They won't go to the grocery store. They quit driving their cars. And they actually are more at risk for dementia. So this is about health and helping people live healthier lives and lives where they are more engaged, fuller lives. So that's one we're working on. Second one I want to mention, Bernie Sanders and I are the Social Security caucus in the Senate. Yeah, we'll keep fighting over who's the president of the caucus, you know. But we are the caucus on Social Security, and we have a bill that would do two things. It would expand the life of Social Security so that there's no dip in benefits out to the end of the century. Pretty good deal. And the second part of it is it would raise Social Security benefits by $200 a month. So, there it is. It's about saying that we pay taxes and you don't get to stop paying taxes when you make more and more money, that Social Security taxes apply across the board. So it makes the system completely stable financially and also means that we can actually return better benefits. So Bernie and I continue to work on that one. The third one I want to mention to you, I'm talking about things kind of in the future that I'm working on. And that is, I am really worried about private equity that is moving into every aspect of our lives. Private equity, they're buying up homes now for cash and turning it into rental at the price they want to rent it at and taking them off the market. The one I focused on in particular is private equity buying up nursing homes. I just saw a study the other day that showed that during COVID, nursing homes owned by private equity versus nursing homes that were not owned by private equity, those owned by private equity had a 40% higher mortality rate during COVID. So we're talking life and death. We're not just talking they don't have as nice a paint job. We are talking about the treatment and services that people receive every day. So these are three areas I'm continuing to work in that are kind of right in the front of what I'm working on. Why don't I stop talking there, take as many questions as you all have, and then we'll take some pictures, because that's the fun part. Who's got a question? Yes?
I have one.
Oh, actually, Tricia, why don't you come up and call on people? You know everybody. Come on up. And you know who to stay away from.
That's a hard
There we
one.
go.
But anyway, why don't we just get started?
Okay.
What do we got? Go ahead, David.
All right, so I just,
So, sorry.
Senator Warren.
Why don't you introduce yourself?
David Yan, live in Pittsfield. Well, whatever. So, you start on the Social Security thing about raising that, but what about the people that are the top 1% that get capped at what they pay into Social Security, and they turn around and collect it?
This is exactly my point, is that the Social Security tax should be just like an income tax. If you make more money, you pay more into it. And then that gives us the money both to be able to stabilize the system, clear out to the end of the 21st century, and actually raise benefits. So we're in exactly the same place.
Okay, all right, so that's.
Okay, good. Take yes for an answer. Yeah.
Rosalind.
Rosalind Kopstein, devoted community volunteer.
Good for you, Rosalind.
And retired social worker. One of the, on the few committees that I work on, there's always a deficit of funding. You know, the FEMA EFSP, Emerging Food and Services Program, hopefully your staff is writing this down, limits the amount of funds to the community based on unemployment rates. And we know that seniors aren't employed, they're retired, so they're not even taken into that faction. So the issue is, finding more funds for that. The issue with this EFSP program, there's a lot of details, and some of my buddies here know that, and the paperwork is ridiculous. The other committee that I'm on distributes federal community block grant funds. Okay, and we know that that amount over the last 15 years has been reduced, and that is what those funds serve seniors and young people. Last point, very briefly, is that I'm also so concerned about the gap in services and the people that we're not reaching.
Yeah.
For these senior programs or the food programs, there are so many seniors who can't get to the programs. And so how do we provide support for that?
Right. So they're wonderful questions, which is exactly what I would expect from a social worker. Right? Terrific. Oh, yeah, here we go. Terrific stuff. Let me just make a couple of ancillary points, because there's a whole lot of detail in that. But one of the things that happened during COVID is, you may remember, Linda will remember this for sure, we passed 2 rounds of COVID relief. The first one was the Washington view of what the towns needed across the country. And that meant it was down to, you gotta do this, and then you gotta do this, and then you gotta do this, and you gotta do, and it was a lot of money, but it was, and so I'm on the phone, like, it felt like every other day, with the mayors across Massachusetts, including Linda, who said, I feel like I'm standing on the other side of a window. I can see the money, but I don't need money for that thing. My problem here is I've got more seniors. My problem here is we need transportation to get people food. We need different things than somebody thought of down in Washington. And she was right. Second round of COVID money, we just basically gave towns the money and said, do what needs to be done most. Now that's the principle, as you know, behind the block grants. The problem is, needs have continued to grow and funding for it has shrunk. So I'm a fan, because I think it worked, of saying the role of the federal government, there are places we need to provide programs, and they are our responsibility. Social Security is one of them. It is not up to different towns to decide, oh, you're gonna get more and you're gonna get less. That's our job. And frankly, I think that's true on the Affordable Care Act. I think it's outrageous that we have states across this country that have not opted in. People don't have access to Medicaid. People are dying because of this. Not here in Massachusetts, but I think it's wrong. I think we need to take federal responsibility. But there are a whole lot more programs where the best thing the federal government can do is say, you figure out the right way. We put in a couple of criteria so we can say this is what we're trying to do. But then you fill in the gaps the way you think is the best way to fill in the gaps. You identify support for seniors. I think that's right, people who fall in the cracks. I just want to add to it. I think this is the only way we're going to get to move forward on housing. We have a housing crisis here in Massachusetts, but all over this country, and it's housing of every kind. We need housing for seniors, we need housing for people with disabilities, we need housing for first-time home buyers, we need multifamily housing for renters, we need housing for people who don't have any housing at all. We need all of the above. But the federal government should not come in and say, you're going to build an apartment house over there and 10 senior living spaces over there. It's a total disaster in my view. What the federal government should be doing, and what I'm pushing for, is we'll build the programs and fund them, I hope, but we will provide the funding. You figure out what works to get more housing to the people in your area, and we try to be a good partner and try to get the state to partner up with us so that projects that otherwise are just not financially viable become viable, because they're getting some boost from the federal government, some boost from the state government, and then make it come
In an
together.
ideal world.
In an ideal world. But the world we're gonna fight for, we're not even waiting for the ideal world, we're moving it there.
Well, and I
Thank you.
think the best example of that is the issue of density, right?
Yeah.
If you're building affordable housing in the north end compared to building affordable housing or workforce housing in Pittsfield, compared to building workforce housing or affordable housing in Clarksburg, right? The density is gonna be different. And when the criteria is, you need, the federal government says, or the state government says, you need to have this much density, that doesn't work, right? We need to figure out a different way.
Yeah, I
So-
think you're right.
Go ahead.
Hi, Mary Ann Hyatt, CEO,
Hi,
President
Mary
of
Ann.
Berkshire County Art. I'm honored to be here in your
good to
presence,
see
Senator
you.
Warren. And I just want to thank you for your stand on the debt ceiling negotiations, which seriously could have affected Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, SSDI,
Yep.
for so many
Yep.
of the folks that we serve. So
Yep.
thank you from all my colleagues.
Thank you. That's very kind, and you give me an opportunity to say. If the Democrats can get all three pieces, the trifecta, that is the House, the Senate, and the White House, one of the first things we have to do, in my view, is we need to get rid of the filibuster so we can pass the laws that need to be passed. Voting is first. Every American citizen, right to vote, right to get that vote counted, and no gerrymandering. So that all of that is federalized and we support it. We need to make Roe versus Wade the law of the land again. We need gun safety, but right up in the top of the list is we need to get rid of the debt ceiling. It is just used as a way to take hostage. And let's face it, it's not when they're in power they do it and when we're in power we don't. No! Democrats are always the ones who play grown-up in the room and say, we will give up on our priorities in order to pass the debt ceiling. And there are lots of ways to do this. So for example, I'm kind of the view that when Congress passes a budget, that automatically means if you have to borrow money in order to spend the money in that budget, then it's automatic. There's no second round on the vote that says we may somehow default on our outstanding bonds, on our outstanding obligations. So thank you for the comment, and you remind me, we got a lot on our plate here.
Now, Senator, in that effort to get
Yes.
the trifecta, you were honored to be in this room with many members of the Berkshire Brigade.
Yes, I
who worked
remember the
very,
Berkshire
very
Brigade.
hard, to make that happen.
That's right.
And not just here in the Berkshires, but particularly New Hampshire, and then a lot of work going on in rural New York, so
Yep.
that's great. Paula, and then we're gonna go to you, okay?
Hi, Paula.
Senator Warren, I'm Paula Almgren. I'm an attorney in Lenox,
Uh-huh.
elder law and estate planning, and I was president of the National Academy of Elder Law Attorneys. So I do a lot of work state
Good.
and nationwide.
Uh-huh.
So there's two things that are at issue right now that would really help seniors, and it's more, we
you
need
speak up
like
a
kind of, sorry?
Can you speak
Just
up?
a little
Yeah.
louder.
We need support, like we need sort of prodding to mass health, okay? So the first one is for community-based Medicaid. So when you're at home and you need care, there's a income ceiling of $2,742. If you're $1 over that income amount, you have to pay a recurring 6-month deductible of $10,400, okay? So that, and the people who are on community Medicaid can only have 2,000 of assets, so they can't do it, and so now they have to go to a nursing home. So CMS issued this letter to state Medicaid directors in December of 2021, saying to them, you have the flexibility to change these big deductibles that the people can't meet. So what we're proposing is, and this is many states do this, you pay the amount per month that you're over that 2,700. So that, like, if you're $1 over, you would pay $1 a month instead of trying to meet a $10,000 deductible. So I did give Allison a packet
Good,
with this info
good.
in it. So that's a major, I see it all the time with my seniors, and they're at home and they can't stay home because they cannot meet a they can't pay that kind of
And
money.
it's less to pay to keep them home than it is to put
Yeah,
them in
it
a
is,
nursing
right.
home.
Yeah,
It's
and
like
they know
half the
that.
price.
Yeah, they have it, the state does know what it costs to keep people home versus in nursing home. And everyone wants to be home for the most part unless they're really critically ill, then they just want to stay home. Then there's also something called pooled trust. The pooled trusts are allowed for everyone under 65. We in Massachusetts allow 65 and over pooled trusts, but they're getting rid of them in March of 2024. And what they are, they're this trust. So I have a lot of mostly older women who outlive their husbands, and they have around $80,000. I can't tell you how many cases I have. So this woman needs a nursing home, and if she goes into the nursing home, she gets $2,000, and then the rest goes in a pooled trust. Now she's on Medicaid in a nursing home, but she has this $80,000 sitting there for her benefit for her life, sole benefit trust. But they're trying to eliminate them. So now instead, this is going to be a woman in a nursing home who paid 8 months to the nursing home and then is impoverished. So we're trying to keep these pooled trusts because they make a huge difference for people.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
In your materials, I put a list of all the things people use it for. They're in the nursing home or in the hospital beyond their bed hold. We can private pay for their nursing home. They can pay for extra care. They can pay for, speech therapy or physical therapy, things that aren't covered by Medicaid. They can pay for Eastside Pizza, whatever benefits them.
People with
Yes.
disabilities as well?
Oh, absolutely, all
Yeah.
disabilities.
Okay,
But
so-
the under 65
We
get to
oversee-
keep them, and the
yeah.
over 65 lose them in March of 2024, so it's really, I don't know what
So I'm
kind of
glad
power
you
you
put.
have over
I'm-
Medicaid,
Yeah,
but
I'm
those
glad
are
you
two
put the
biggies.
list together, and boy,
Yes.
it is a
Yeah.
big rock to try to move that thing in any direction. But I do want to say on this, one of the things that frustrates me the most in the federal government are the places where the rules, which may have been written, somebody had a good idea, but the consequence is to be penny wise and pound foolish. So going back to your point earlier, we struggle to keep Meals on Wheels funded at the federal level. I fight this every year. Some Republicans zeros out Meals on Wheels. It turns out that what the numbers show is that if you have somebody drop by every day with a meal, it costs a few dollars, but it's also a wellness check.
That's right.
Yeah.
And that more people, not everybody, but more people can stay at home. The cost when the Meals on Wheels program is withdrawn, more people end up in nursing homes costing many fold times more money for this. And so you're pointing out more specific elements but we watch this all the way through the system, that the whole accounting is off in the government. And I know most people don't get really passionate about the accounting. I do. Total dork here. But because this matters, and it matters who's going to get help, and I think for seniors and for people with disabilities, the whole system is just upside down. Because it's really about, we say we want to help people, and yet it's only if you'll stay in poverty. Only if you will not even have the resources to be able to build up just a tiny little bit from what's automatically covered, as you say, certain kinds of services. And that's cruel. It's ugly. And we need to do a much better job on both making the investments that let people stay at home. I'm a co-sponsor on a bill to this home and community-based care, it's called.
Yeah.
But it's also changing rules like the rules around trust. So thank you for alerting us.
She's
We'll
really-
work on
it's
it.
a
We're
great
waiting for
resource
the
for
state
you.
Medicaid.
There's
to
gonna be a
make
last
waiver to
question
the
here.
feds.
Oh, sorry.
Uh,
If you would just introduce yourself, sir.
I'm Mark Swoy. That's it. So anyways, you got problems with rose-colored glasses here, because the Social Security Administration, they want to cut all the people that work there. So you
Yeah.
get about a 3-year wait to sign up or get something rectified. Private equity's got 30-40% of emergency rooms. You can't even find an emergency room in 30-40% of the places. You got banking crisis due to the Dodd-Frank Act, because 25% of the insurance fund from the debacle that we've had is gone now, because we won't have Glass-Steagall that Clinton took out. That we had the problem in '98, we had the problem in 2007-8, and we've got it rearing its ugly head again. You just can't believe. Oh yeah, and drug prices, Oh, you'd be glad to know that down in the Carolinas, Pfizer's lost their drug warehouse. So you better not need an operation anytime in the near future because you won't get any anesthesia because that's wiped out. So a lot of stuff to work on, and I can't even keep up with all the other stuff that them are just some highlights.
You know, Mark, I think you're right, and I feel really frustrated about this, and I want to underscore something Mark's saying here, and it's where he starts with Social Security. We hear over and over and over Republicans saying they're the ones who are fiscally responsible. Government spends too much money. They don't want the government to spend money. You know where they want to cut money? They want to cut money from the Social Security Administration.
We paid for it.
That's right. But it's not just cut your benefits. They want to cut the administration. Why? Because that means the next time you really do have a problem, something gets tangled up, somebody transposed a number, somebody got something wrong, it'll take you'll be on the phone for months. If you go in, they'll have a wait list that you can't get seen today or this week or this month. Government is not free. People have to be paid who show up and do their jobs. And here's the thing, those jobs are important. They are helping people get, in that case, the benefits that they paid for.
Correct.
And so when people say they just want to cut government, they want to make government small, what they're really saying is they want to make it not work. Because if it doesn't work, then the guys who have a lot of money, who don't want to pay any taxes, man, they're free to do whatever they want to do. Private equity.
For private equity, let's hear
is
it,
better
cheers.
take over. That's exactly right, and nobody's there to put a stop to it. So I see all these things we're talking about, very important. They're important policy things. We bang heads in Washington every day. But the thing we are fighting most over is this fundamental question about whether we have a government that basically works for the rich and powerful, which means mostly it doesn't have to work at all. It can be little, you can have very few people in it, and they can dump whatever they want to dump in the river, they can put whatever they want to put into the air, not pay taxes on however much money they make, and not help make this country run. Or we can have a government where we say, no, it's one that works for all of us. Not just for the wealthy and well-connected, but a government that works for all of us. It works for seniors, it works for little kids. We need childcare in this country. Do you realize that the 37 richest nations in the world, we are 35th on what we spend on childcare? That is an embarrassment in this country. So I will just say, I would stay here and talk to you all forever. But I do want to say how grateful I am that on a Friday afternoon, when you could be doing anything else,
Can I go with later?
that you all would come here to talk about our country, to talk about the important issues that face you, that face other people here in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. When I go down to Washington, I'm so proud to be from Massachusetts. And I just want to say thank you to all of you. Thank you.